Good evening. You're watching Co-op for Two. I've just realized that I thought my plan was to go live on Wednesday, and today is Tuesday. So just as I was pushing the button, I realized something's not quite right. All right, well, here we are. We're streaming live. We're going to do a playthrough today of a ThinkFun cold case called End of the Line. I'll talk about it in a second, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do about this Tuesday-Wednesday mix-up. Let me check in with the chat. There's no one here. There's no one talking. YouTube says 12 concurrent viewers, so there's someone out there, but the normal gang, perhaps I've confused everyone. Noah is here. Well, it's not like it makes a big difference. I don't keep to a regular schedule on this channel, so the ramifications are zero. And today we're not playing a very important game. I do try to schedule things in two different ways on this channel. If it's a game in a new series that I know people might be curious about, I try to give several days advance notice. When we're playing a game from a series that we've played a lot of, like Deadbolt Mystery Society, I feel free to do those on very short notice. So I have a bit of a history with this ThinkFun cold case series. There are actually 4 games in this series. The first one is the one I've already played, which was A Story to Die For. And I did a little roundup review of that game and 4 others in a spoiler-free video you can see. And my take on it was that it was okay, but very easy. And I think that's what we can expect from all of the games in this series, which means it's not really perfect for this group. When we have a bunch of us who've got some experience with this type of game, these cold case games, the harder games tend to work better. And I understand this will probably be short and easy. However, it is quite cheap. You can get the games in this series anywhere from $10 to $16 on Amazon. That makes them as cheap as these kind of games come, other than games that are on sale. So I think what we'll do is we'll try to play this with an eye towards whether this would be a good recommendation for someone's first game of this type. Someone who's not sure that they're ready for this, not sure whether they'll like it. So we're going to try to play it with an eye towards that. And we'll see if it's a good recommendation for new players. The other reason I'm sort of interested in this is I'm sort of, I've been working on a detective game called High and Low, a system for making Sherlock Holmes consulting style detective games. And we've been talking about how all of these cold case games and most of the mystery games, there's a reason they're called murder mystery games sometimes, is it almost always involves a murder. And in fact, although these two look like they're heist stories, they both have murders in them. And I guess if you're writing a detective game, you juice up the stakes by putting some murder in it. But it is always breath of fresh air when we get a case that focuses more on something other than murder. And heists, big sort of group thefts, have a special place in movie history and film noir history, and they're very appealing. And I've been sort of thinking about, boy, it would be nice to have more of that. More of that in High and Low, our detective New York City film noir system. And it takes a different touch to write such a game because it feels more procedural, less emotional, and often less of a mystery about who did it than how to prove that they did it. So I'm sort of chewing on that kind of stuff, and I'm curious about this. Let's check in with the chat, see how everyone's doing, who's here. Anything else to talk about? I also wanted to try out, I spent a couple days working on my plugins for OBS, the software I use to broadcast these live streams, and I want to test them out and make sure I haven't broken anything. I think this weekend we'll try to play a more serious game. Maybe a Sherlock Holmes consulting detective game. Maybe one from West End Mysteries. We did play last week this game behind me here, Missing in the Caribbean, a cold case game by a new company, and I really liked it. I think we all enjoyed it. It was maybe medium difficulty, but some very clever clues. I don't expect we'll get stuff like that here, although it was quite expensive, $32 on Amazon, but very good quality game. And I would recommend that to anyone, although it might be a little hard if it was your very first game. And Isara on the Discord said he reached out to the company and they are going to try to translate more of their games, which would be great. Anything else to talk about before we get started here? I was just rewatching one of the classic heist movies called Rififi, a French film noir heist movie, which is famous. I recommend it. Famous for having a 30-minute scene where they're breaking in and there's no dialogue, there's no music. It's just 30 minutes of quiet breaking into this place. And that's the kind of thing that I want in a heist movie. All right, so of these, we're going to play End of the Line. I believe this is their most recent one, 2022. Now, I want you to note that, and this might be a sign of trouble when you look into candidate games, it's got an age and a number of players. That's all fine, but I want you to notice there's no difficulty rating and there's no author credited. So that's always a sort of, that's a sign that maybe, although we've played some very good games with no author credited, but that is something that I look for. And having an author credited does not necessarily mean it's going to be a good game, but it is a little odd. I am curious about board game design contracts, because it does seem like occasionally a game will not be credited. I'm not sure what that means. Sometimes if a movie isn't credited or credited as a fake director, that means the director decided they don't want their name associated with it. But I don't think that's how these things work. But I do think it tends to mean that it sort of was done on contract. All right. Nothing else to talk about? No one else has any interesting projects they're working on? Did I schedule this for Wednesday? Or did I just, maybe I just in my mind thought I would play something on Wednesday. But I just scheduled this today a couple hours ago, so maybe I did properly schedule it for tonight. There is a Discord for this channel. That's where I tend to post last minute, hey, what does everyone want to play? So if you are interested in joining me for these sort of last minute streams and you want to help decide what to play, you might join the Discord. There's a link on the YouTube page. There's also a Board Game Geek guild for this channel. Oh, I want to say one more. I want to make one more complaint. I'm becoming sort of grumpy about these things, but I noticed on Board Game Geek, so we played Missing in the Caribbean a week ago, and I noticed a new a video on Board Game Geek, In Focus video by the Brothers Murph. They're a very well-known board game channel and review channel. And on Board Game Geek, which is an amazing, wonderful site, the only site really of covering board games, the main site. And if you click on the bottom of Board Game Geek for advertising packages, you can see that they sell advertising for companies, for board game companies that want to promote their stuff. And most of the advertising is not like an ad. Most of it is, here's how much you can pay to have your game featured as if it was organically featured on the site. There's always a little tiny little note somewhere that says sponsored, but really the whole game is, you pay us, we will produce something, put it on the website as if it was organically coming up of interest. And the Missing in the Caribbean video, this is how messed up all of the board game YouTube content stuff is. So here's a channel with some well-respected reviewers that also record sponsored content. And for $1,700, they'll make a video for you. That's what happened with Missing in the Caribbean. It's sponsored. And the thing that jumped out to me, though, about this video, and this is not to pick on them because it's with every video, here's the introduction. It's like, this video is about this game, which was, which this company helped sponsor. Now, what does helped sponsor mean? That's a nice way of saying, here's a video that was entirely paid for by this company. This is an advertisement video. We were not going to film it if we didn't get the money. We gave them a fixed price to agree to film it, give them, let them check it, make sure it said what they wanted to say, and then up it goes on the website. So this little partially sponsored game, little game that gets played with the advertising, starting to rub me a little bit the wrong way. That's really not what's happening. This isn't partially sponsored by. This is an advert. This is a fully paid for advert. All right. Well, there's none of that going on here. God help me. I'll tell you what. God help me if I ever started doing advertising stuff on this channel, because everyone who's been watching it for 3 years has heard me rail against all this. So, but maybe that's the way you got to do it. You got to do the poison pill. You got to put the poison pill in your videos from the beginning to make it impossible for you to change your mind about that stuff. Okay, Melissa says, you posted you were going to do a night on Wednesday. Maybe we'll still do something on Wednesday. I was thinking about body of evidence. Maybe we'll do body of evidence tomorrow or on the weekend. All right, let's get to our game. Okay, so it's a pretty hefty bunch of documents here. I do remember from the previous ThinkFun that it was largely interviews, and that looks like what we're going to be getting here. But let's go through this in order, I guess. Police Nationale, Place de Louis Pasteur, La Orcan. So we're in France, it looks like. Colleague, it is necessary for you to re-examine the case of the murder of Henry Valentine, which occurred at the Pauvigny railway station on Wednesday, October 27th, 1982. Okay, 42 years ago. Although this was investigated extensively at the time, no charges were ever brought. Subsequent re-examinations have failed to make progress, and the matter has now been passed over for you to make use of your particular skills with cold cases. It was felt at the time there must be a connection with the earlier murder of Léonce Junot on Sunday, November 13th, 1961, for which Henry Valentine was convicted. You'll find some details of this case in the papers attached. To assist, I have listed the documents enclosed over the page. I trust this helps. There are 4 outstanding questions on the case that we feel, if answered, could justify the reopening of inquiries into the 2 murders. Number 1, who killed Léonce Junot? Number 2, who killed Henry Valentine? Number 3, what was the motivation for the raid on the Junot brothers' workshop? Number 4, where was the gun that killed Léonce Junot from 1961 to 1982? Okay, and then we use the website to submit our answers. I don't believe there's any internet use during the play except for submitting the answers. Okay, and then we've got a list of contents which we never look at unless we think something's missing. All right, so we've got, shall we go through the items before we start reading? We've got a little newspaper clipping, fairly high quality. We've got police report, French police report, French police report, floor plan, more French police report, another newspaper clipping. Then we've got, looks like, some interviews with suspects, some photographs. I mean, this is nothing to, what's the expression? Shake a stick at? This is, are these duplicates? No. So there's quite a bit in here, quite a few photographs. Then some railway tickets, it looks like. Interview, autopsy, more interview, brochure, very well produced looking train schedule. So this is actually pretty high quality materials here. Doesn't really look homemade. More interviews. As I remember the previous one, okay, here's our first little thing that doesn't really look real. More interviews. As I remember, the previous one looks like bullet examination, laboratory examination. Okay, so we're going to go through these in order, but seems like pretty good quality stuff here. I do remember, I think I remember that the previous case I played in this series was interview heavy. That was sort of key, was finding inconsistencies in interviews, something you think would be used more by these kinds of companies, but frequently isn't. Okay, let's see. So what have we got? We've got 2 murders, one in the 80s, one in the 60s, and who killed each of them, and then some other things we don't understand. But no mention of any robbery or stuff. I don't know. Should we start with, maybe we should start with newspaper from the 60s. Okay, what have we got? Gazette do Salado, Tuesday, June 12th, 1962. So this is going to be our first murder and our first case. Okay, let's see what we got. All right, Tuesday, June 12th, deadly heist. Pavonier jewelry heist murderer sentenced. Henry Valentine was yesterday found guilty of murder at the High Court and sentenced to 25 years in prison. His accomplice, Antoine Papineau, was found guilty of aiding an offender and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. The court heard that Valentine, 28, shot and killed Leonce Junot during a burglary at Junot Brothers Jewelers in Pavonier on November 13th of last year. Valentine escaped with valuable jewelry in a car driven by Papineau. The stolen items have not been recovered. Papineau insisted in court he had no idea Valentine intended to carry a gun during the burglary. He was waiting in a car around the corner, but when Valentine told him what had happened, Papineau drove Valentine to the railway station and left him there. Valentine planned to escape the area by train, but Papineau phoned the police and told them where the fugitive was hiding. Armed police found Valentine at the station and arrested him. The judge praised Papineau for his testimony, despite Valentine's threats against him, and for contacting the police at the first opportunity following the murder. Papineau has always maintained his role in the burglary was only to provide intelligence on the Junot's premises and to act as a getaway driver. Yvonne Junot, speaking outside the court after the verdict was delivered, said Valentine's sentence was too lenient. My brother's dead. I believe in an eye for an eye. Valentine should die too. This is not justice. Okay, so a burglary. 2 accomplices in the burglary, Henry Valentine and Antoine Papineau, the getaway driver. Henry Valentine ends up shooting and killing one of the brothers who run the jewelry store, and his partner turns him in, saying murder was not part of this. And then one of the other brothers survives and thinks that this is too lenient a sentence. Are we told the sentence time? Not really, not yet. Okay, then we've got another article here about Tour Fever, Tour de France. On the other side, we have hikers, epidemic, greatest day, now 10 years past. Article about the Grand Prix Salon Tennis Championship. Doesn't seem like it will be related to our case. Okay, let's just for fun jump around here. Let's take a look at the 1980 murder that we think might be connected. Murderer murdered. Okay. Infamous killer shot dead days before prison release. His son arrested at Pavigny Station. Henry Valentine, the convicted murderer, was shot and killed at Pavigny Station yesterday. Acting on an anonymous phone call, police raced to the station to find Valentine had been transferred to an open prison at Abrigal in preparation for his release sometime in the coming weeks. In a further development, armed police arrested Joel Valentine, Henry's son, near the station. Local resident Norbert Deschamps, 64, said, "The police were everywhere. I was late for my meeting. I don't think anyone in Pavigny will mourn Valentine's death. We've all been worried he would turn up here again. He's a bad sort." Something got cut. Oh, I see. It goes on. I see. We missed a little bit. Okay. Henry Valentine, convicted murderer. Police raced to the station. He found him dead from gunshot wounds, apparently having fallen from a great height onto the ground. Valentine, 50, was serving a 25-year sentence for the murder of Léonce Junot in Pavigny in 1961, had been transferred to an open prison in Abrigal in preparation for his release sometime in the coming weeks. "He's a bad sort, good riddance, I say," Lieutenant Blanc of the local police said. "I can confirm that the body found at Pavigny Station yesterday evening is that of Henry Valentine. They have arrested his son, Joel. He's been charged with possession of a firearm, is being questioned in relation to the murder of his father. We do not know how or why Henry Valentine came to be in Pavigny and can confirm that he had not been released from prison. We ask that everyone respect the privacy of his family at this difficult time. Speculation over the early release of Valentine from prison has been mounting in recent weeks, with calls for his sentence to be extended rather than reduced. Once again, Henry Valentine has brought violence and murder to the quiet streets of Pavigny." Okay, so 20 years after his conviction for murdering this jewelry brother, he was transferred to a prison. He was going to be released in a couple of weeks, and they find him at the station, shot and having fallen over some railing. Then they say they don't know why he was at the station, and the son has been arrested for his murder. We do not know how or why. This is the weird part. We do not know how or why he came to be in this station. He has not been released. There was even talk of extending his sentence. Okay, and then we've got a little sidebar about the crimes and stuff. Valentine's release was imminent. Why did he abscond from prison? Murder that shocked a small town. Early release of prisoners. Have we gone too far? Prison overcrowding, lower reoffending. Okay. And then we've got a couple more articles that don't appear to be related to our case. Article about banking, article about voting, but this is, I guess I was going to say this is an article about this local town, but they're all about this town. This is the local paper. All right. Curious, not at all obvious. I don't have any theories about why his son would kill him. All right. Well, we've got some interviews here. I don't know. Should we work backwards? Should we work forward? I guess, let's see, if I was doing this case, working this case for real, I would be curious about the police reports before we get to interviews. Sort of impressed by the number of documents here. Okay, let's look at these 1961 police reports and fill ourselves in a little bit on the initial burglary death. I've got 3 reports here from 61. Let's see. Police interview with Antoine Papineau. 2:10 p.m. Sunday, November 13th, 1961 at Pavigny Police Station. Interview conducted by Major Rousseau and Gendarme Dufort. Rousseau says, "Now, Papineau, this is a terrible business you're involved in, is it not?" "I will make a full confession. On my part, in the robbery. But I had no part in the shooting. You must believe me. Have you arrested Henry Valentine?" All right, I'm going to stop with the accent. Rousseau says, "Valentine was arrested at Pavigny Station, just where you told us he would be." "Thank God. I would not feel safe to talk to you if he were still walking free. And you recovered the jewelry?" "We have not." "You must tell us where it is, Antoine. We are searching your car and your house as we speak." "Please, search as you like. I do not have it. That murderous swine Valentine had it with him in a small canvas bag when I dropped him at the station." "Let's start at the beginning. Tell me how the robbery was supposed to happen." "I received certain information regarding the Junot brothers' business. The older brother, I think he is called Ivan, was working on a collection of special items of great value commissioned by a private client. Although the shop is kept locked, I learned that access to his workshop could be gained through a skylight. If someone were able to reach it by scaling the walls up to the roof, inside there would be a strong box which might be opened using bolt cutters. As for the brothers, they were never at work on Sunday mornings. The rear of the building is not visible from the street, and the town is very quiet at that time. I could not climb to the roof myself, but I knew of the expertise of Henry Valentine. He is not a particularly clever man, but he is a prolific burglar and easily up to the task." "So you passed the information to Valentine. In return for what?" "I would sell the stolen items through my contacts in the jewelry trade. Valentine and I would each receive 10% of their value." "That doesn't seem like a great deal of money." "Oh, that's a very good deal, Major Rousseau, for such specialized stolen goods. Valentine understood this. He surely would have tried to sell them to some pawn shop and been caught immediately. My own contacts would realize much more of their true value." "And did you have any other involvement in the plan?" "I was to bring Valentine to the workshop, then wait around the corner in my car to drive him back home. He would give me the items, and after my contacts had disposed of them discreetly, we would each be paid." "And who are these contacts?" "I'm sorry, I don't intend to end up dead as Léonce Junot." "We'll be following up on that. What happened?" "Well, the first I knew something was wrong was when Valentine flung open the door of my car, leapt inside, and shouted, 'Drive, drive!' He was covered in blood. I was terrified and drove like a madman. I almost hit a gendarme and some pedestrians as we turned the corner into the square. I yelled at Valentine, 'What has happened?' He said he had killed someone in the workshop and shot them when they tried to prevent him escaping. He was quite calm, almost dazed. I said I wanted no part of this and he must get out of the car now. But he refused and said he had to get away from Pavigny as quickly as possible before the crime was discovered. I wouldn't drive him away, so he said if I left him at the railway station, he would make his getaway by train." "So you drove him to the station?" "Yes, but when I asked him to give me the jewelry as we had arranged, he refused. He said he would need money if he were to escape the area and hide out as far away as possible. I was furious that he could have been so stupid as to take a gun with him to the workshop, furious that he had killed Léonce Junot, and furious that he had involved me in this murder, and now I was not to receive any money from the theft. As I drove away from the station, I made up my mind to end this matter. I would tell the authorities where to capture Valentine, confess my part in the robbery and throw myself on the mercy of the courts. I stopped at a telephone and rang the police. We have your call timed at 11:32 a.m. The gendarme you almost hit reported your speeding car at 10:46. That's a lot of time to drop Valentine at the station and drive to the telephone. I sat in the car for a few minutes by the telephone. It may have been longer before I rang. Why was that? Well, this was a big decision for me, Major. I don't want to go to prison, but Valentine may say I was involved in the murder. He's not to be trusted. Please believe me. This seems reasonable. Like, he almost hit someone at 10:46. He had to drop him at the station and then make a call 45 minutes later. That doesn't seem so unreasonable to figure out that you're going to call the police on someone. That's a big deal. Okay, now we're going to have an interview with the jewelry store brother, the surviving jewelry store brother. Police interview with Ivan Junot, 1405, Sunday, November 13th. So, looks like an hour after the first one. Actually, we have an interview with the actual guy earlier. Let's read that one first. 12:45. Henry Valentine, I must advise you, you remain under caution throughout this interview. Do you understand? I have no comment. I see. We have your blood-stained clothing as well as your rucksack containing bolt cutters and gloves, all of which will help us place you at the workshop of the Junot brothers, where Leonce Junot was killed earlier today. You must understand there's nothing to be gained from this uncooperative attitude. No comment. Do you deny you murdered Leonce Junot? No comment. This is ridiculous. Where is the gun you used to kill Leonce Junot? No comment. And where is the jewelry you stole from the Junot brothers' workshop? No comment. Your accomplice will tell you everything we need to know. Will tell us everything we need to know. So you have nothing to gain from your silence. If you make this easier for us, perhaps we can make it easier for you. I have no comment. Enough of this nonsense. Perhaps a night in the cells will help bring you to your senses. Gendarme Dufat, please take him away. I mean, this is the proper answer. They're like, we're going to help you out if you tell us how to catch you. He's like, no. All right, that makes sense. All right. Ooh, and there's jokes in the chat about my accent. I have often thought, like, here's what I do. When I've got some spare time, I think, what plugins, what code could I write for the live streaming software to make it better? What stuff could I write to make the technical aspects of this channel better? But really, the one thing I could do to make this channel better is to learn how to do accents properly. And I have tried to find a YouTube video or two or something on Udemy or Skillshare, but I don't have an ear for it. Okay, so here we have an interview with the surviving brother. Monsieur Junot, may I first offer my condolences over the death of your brother. But we must now work to find the circumstances of his death. Tell me first about Leonce. What kind of man was he? Ah, Leonce, he enjoyed life. A little headstrong, maybe, impulsive, but brave and courageous. He spent 3 years begging for lifts and sleeping on floors around Europe, never staying in any one place for too long. Then he married a girl in England and brought her home to meet our parents. She has the same wild streak as Leonce, but they said they were ready to settle down here in Pavigny. He was quite new to the jewelry business, I understand. We worked together for about the last year. I started making jewelry some years ago, worked hard, studied, and became a master craftsman, recognized and honored by the Jewelers Guild. When Leonce returned from his travels, my father persuaded me to take Leonce into the business and teach him my skills. So you were teaching him the business. I tried. I lacked the delicate touch, he lacked the delicate touch, said his hands were better suited to handling bricks than gemstones. The pendant he made for Mother's birthday was clumsy and rough, but it was the first piece he made which started to show some promise. The irony is it led to him being killed. Was there no possibility of him running the affairs of the business, leaving you to concentrate on the creative production of the pieces? Ha! He had even less idea of running a business. Money was always a mystery to him. I have to buy materials from which to create my pieces. Gold, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, none of them come cheaply. The workshop is a small place, but still needs electricity, rent, heat in the winter, insurance. My God, the insurance. There have been a series of armed robberies of jewelry shops in the north, and as a result, our premiums were raised to 3 times the cost. And Leonce understood none of this. Of course not. He said we should damn the insurers and protect ourselves. He said that he would shoot anyone who tried to steal from us. Why, he kept a gun in his desk. Oh, Leonce. Let's go through what happened this morning. You went to church, I believe. Yes, my wife and I walked to the church of Saint Eloise, as we do every Sunday morning, and there was a special service for our armed forces, and the church was especially full. Sunday morning is an unusual time for a burglary. Do you think someone knew that both you and your brother would be elsewhere? It is no great mystery, I suppose. I am always in church on Sunday morning. Then we go to see my parents after lunch. Leonce and his wife go to see them before lunch. So anyone who wanted to get into your workshop while it was empty could have easily seen that Sunday morning was a good time. Yes, some nights I'm working until very late or even into the next morning. Other days I may have an idea to create something. I can't sleep, so we'll go to work before dawn. So it was unusual for Leonce to be at work at that time. Completely unheard of. When I spoke with his wife earlier to tell her the tragic news, she said he only went to collect the pendant he had made for our mother, as he'd forgotten to bring it home. Perhaps he may have left the workshop door unlocked if he only intended to be there very briefly. Absolute not. The one thing I was able to make him understand was that the door must always be locked. When we open the door from outside, we check to make sure no one is standing nearby, and we always lock it again as soon as we are inside. So where did you go after church? I walked home with my wife and then received a phone call about an urgent work matter. I drove to the workshop. The door was locked. I opened it, went inside, relocked it, and climbed down the stairs. It was cold. As I reached the top, I could see the roof window was open, which was odd. I only open it in the heat of summer and always make sure it is properly closed again. I could see the open strong box through the internal window, and Leonce's chair was on its side. When I walked over to the inside window to get a better look at the strong box, I saw the body, Leonce. He wasn't moving. There was blood everywhere, from his mouth seeping through his shirt and on the floor. I looked around in case there was someone else still there, but there was no one. The strong box was empty, and the padlock had been cut through. Everything was gone. It was then that I went back downstairs to my car and drove to the police station. Can you describe the items that were in the strong box? Yes, I can give you a list. Very well, Monsieur Junot. Once again, I am sorry for your loss. Yes, well, I suppose the insurance will cover it. I meant your brother, monsieur. Now he must take your fingerprints and add a print from your shoes. We have arrested someone we believe to be connected with the murder of your brother, but we must be able to understand which items have been touched and by whom. Have you recovered the jewelry? No, we have not, but we will solve this case, monsieur. That you can be sure. Okay, so he doesn't seem particularly concerned for his brother's death. That's pretty clear. He is asking about the jewelry, which is still unrecovered. And now we've got a nice little scene of the crime here. What have we got? So it's 1 to 8 scale. There's the body of the jeweler. Remember, he said the skylight was open, and the accomplice says that's how they were going to get in, through the skylight. So all seems on the up and up. There's the strong box. Staircase up from the entrance. So we are told by the accomplice that the story from Henry Valentine is he robbed the place, and then someone tried to stop him as he was leaving, right? I mean, this is secondhand knowledge, but he says what happened. He says he killed someone and shot them when they tried to prevent his escaping. It's a little odd because here's the body. He came down here, right? Then he would have had to go in here to the strong box, cut it open, and then someone confronted him here and he shot him. But I guess it would make sense if our victim was in the bathroom. This guy comes down, is unimpeded as he goes and robs the strong box. Then by the time he comes out, the victim has come out of the bathroom, confronts him, shoots him to leave. So I guess that's not all that crazy a thing. Although, what's going on here? Overturned chair. Why would that be? And this chair overturned. That's a little odd, don't you think? Like, under what circumstance would these chairs have gotten overturned? A little odd. But you could imagine a case where this guy gets shot and is struggling to stand up and knocks over the chairs, or they have a struggle here. He's trying to block his way out. They have a struggle in this area, knock over some chairs. Eventually, he has to shoot him. We haven't heard from Valentine his side of the story because he has kept mum, which is not a terrible idea. All right. So I think we're going to do these in order. So I'm going to segregate the 1982 stuff separately. We've got interviews from 82. These look like most of the rest of this might be from 82. Visitor list, 82, 82. 82. Okay, so maybe that's all 82. Yes. Okay, so the rest of the evidence seems to be from 82. So we've gone through, it looks like, the 1961 evidence. I like it. I like the setup. It's a heist gone wrong with a brother of our victim. A little bit suspicious, doesn't seem to care too much about his brother's death. So far, it looks like everything is on face value, though, except that the actual jewelry was never recovered. So there's a whole genre of heist films where the culprit gets arrested and goes to jail, but has hidden the money somewhere and plans to get it when they get out. There's a Robert Redford, Paul Newman movie, not Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I don't think that's the one. I think I'm thinking of another one. Okay, anyway, let's take our first break a little earlier as we shift into 1982. But so far, I like the setup. I'll see you in 8 minutes. We're back. You're watching Call for Two. We're playing ThinkFun's cold case game called End of the Line. 2 murders, one in 1961, one in 1982. And how are they connected? Who killed who? I asked the channel if there are any early theories. DJ Moneycut says, first thought is insurance fraud scheme. So insurance fraud is very common, but the way you would expect it to play out is that the jewelry store owners would put some fake jewels, they'd hire a fake robber to steal them, then they'd report them as stolen. Here we've got a murder of one of the brothers who runs the jewelry shop. However, the brother obviously doesn't care too much about the other brother that died. You could imagine a combination of insurance fraud and a plot to kill off your no-good brother who's weaseling his way into the business, right? Because that interview with the other brother seems to suggest that it's mainly the surviving brother who was responsible for making the business work and doing all the creative work as well. And this other brother may sort of be weaseling in. So you could see how this one surviving brother may have arranged this whole combination thing. Whether he arranged to have his brother killed specifically or just hoped it would happen. Kind of hard to make it happen, though. He's not the guy who originated the idea for the heist, is not the murderer. So how would you... It's hard to imagine how you would arrange this if you were the jewelry store brother who wanted to get the other brother killed. It's a little hard to see how you would arrange it. I do want to recommend another movie. I've recommended it several times on this channel. It's called Before the Devil Knows You're Dead with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke. It is a really great movie. Not going to be for everyone. It has some adult scenes and themes that make it a little rough going. but really one of my favorites. Okay, let's jump ahead now to 1980s. What is everyone drinking, by the way? I've got my normal Christmas tea from Twinings, and then I've got my normal espresso with my Co-op for Two espresso mug. If you're going to be at Gen Con this year, let me know. I'll bring some extra mugs as gifts. If you're interested in writing your own mystery game and you think you might want to make it using the high and low system, check out my game design videos on that game system. There'll be another one in 2 weeks where I'll update on progress. And stop in the Discord. There are a couple people interested in making cases, so we've been talking about it. I'm happy to give some advice, work with you, but I'd love to see some nice procedural heist cases. All right, so let's take a look at new evidence here. So here's our autopsy of Henry Valentine, who was shot and pushed off some railing in the train station in 82. Cadaver recovered from Pavignon railway station by FAO Capitan Fourcal, Police Nationale, October 27th. Gunshot trauma and associated fall from height. So he's got a bullet entry wound in his right upper thigh, near his waist, pelvis. Bullet entry wound, 9mm round, recovered just below the diaphragm at B. So goes in and up. Interesting. Does that mean shot from below? He's on a railway. He's on a station, a walkway up above, and he's shot and bullet goes straight through? Or is it one of these cases where it hits the strong bones of the pelvis and bounces around? We don't know. It's an odd place to get shot. C, fracture to right femur. Okay, this is when he falls. Skull fracture when he falls. Multiple fractures of thoracic and lumbar spine. Okay. Fracture and dislocation of right ankle. Abrasions and lacerations of both hands. I guess that means you just try to stop your fall with your hands. Cadaver, male, I don't know what, 85, 73 kilograms. Cadaver, what are we saying here? Is this 1 meter, 85 centimeters tall? 73 kilograms, age estimated 45 to 55, muscle tone good, toxicology negative for alcohol, prescription drugs, stimulants, dressed in plain dark blue shirt and jeans, black shoes, gray socks, and underwear. Okay, so he's dressed like a normal person. Has he escaped from prison? We don't know. Pockets empty except for one second-class return rail ticket, Abrigal to Pavigny, dated October 27th. These are initial findings as requested. Full detailed autopsy report will follow. We did see some tickets. Let's see if we can find those tickets. Is that the only ticket? No. Okay, let's see if we can make sense out of this. We don't know what he's doing in this station. He shouldn't have been released yet. Okay, what do they say is in his pocket? One second-class return rail ticket. So, what's happening here? It's been punched. This one's been punched once. This one's been punched twice. They're both on the same date. Are we going to be told that one of these is found elsewhere? He's got one second-class return rail ticket, Abrigal to Pavigny. We're told that he was being moved recently he had been moved recently to Abergele, right? Newspaper said he had been transferred to Abergele in preparation for his release. So he was in Abergele, and here he has a round trip ticket from Abergele to Pavigny and then back, I believe. But he's only punched it one part of that visit. And I think this is a different ticket from someone else not found on his body. And maybe this is showing us how a return is punched. Like you go there and then you return back. Someone went to Eln and then came back with this receipt. Okay, but this is all we've got from him. So he somehow took a train today on his death day. 15 francs. Bought it today. There's the blood on it, notice. So he was planning to go back, I guess. Okay. Who got him a ticket? Who got him out of jail? Strange. Okay, maybe we'll put these together so we don't lose them. All right, so we don't know what that other ticket is all about. DJ Moneycut says he was in an open prison, minimal supervision. Sometimes they can have outside jobs. That's an interesting point. Okay, let's take a look at what this little piece of evidence is here. It looks like a train schedule. Montclair for Montvio timetable. So this looks like it's the schedule not from the Abigail line, but from this line, Pavigny to Elm, which we don't know why we care about yet. But let's see if we can find here. So Pavigny is there. Okay, there's Pavigny. And there's the Elm that we don't know about. It doesn't want to zoom in. I don't know why that would be. But no sign of where Abigail is from this map. Okay, not important for us yet, but these seem like they these are going to go together. We don't have use for this yet. This sounds like what the shooter may have been carrying on them. Perhaps that's what we're going to find out. All right, I'm going to put that here. Now, what about these photos? We've got two sets of photos. Let's start with the one that's labeled. Close photographs. Pavigny Station from the tracks. Front of station, tracks toward the something. Outbuildings, view from front up to roof eaves. I see. Was he at the roof eaves? Okay, so photo one here is passenger station from the tracks. Okay, so you're looking at where the train would pull into. Pretty small station here in Pavigny. All right. Photo two is front of the station. Okay, here's the front of the station. Remember our guy, Henry Valentine, was good at climbing up sides of buildings. That's how he broke in. He could have easily gotten up this tree. I don't know if easy is the right word. He could have gotten up this tree. Okay, photo three is tracks toward Banij. Where is our railway line? So I think we could get ourselves here. Okay, so here's Pavigny. And now, so we're looking south towards Banerjees is what this view is. Okay, anything jump out at you from that? Not really. I mean, we don't have any suspicion that someone jumped on the train or anything, so I don't know what we're looking for here. Photo 4 are some outbuildings around the station, maybe where someone, looks like maybe an abandoned building someone could have been hiding in. Taken after the fact, presumably all this. View from front up to the roof eaves. Okay. So if you're looking up to the roof eaves, not sure why any of that helps us really. Was he shot and killed in the station, or do we think it was outside the station and fell off the roof after he was shot? I guess we're going to see here. We've got more photographs. I don't know why they're arranged differently. Why are they so differently arranged? So this set got this explaining what they are, and this set is from the same crime. These are crime scene photographs. Okay. So the first one here, scene of crime, having a railway station, October 27th. Okay, so it looks like he's fallen down on the outside walkway of the tracks. So maybe like the street here. Is he on this little cement walkway? Has he fallen down from... Has he fallen down from a roof onto the little platform? The raised platform, that kind of looks like what it looks like. And then we've got little crime scene markers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There he is. There's the blood, but we're told it came up through his thigh and lodged in his diaphragm, something like that. But we don't know what these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 indicate. Not here. 5 is ornate jeweled earring. Aha. So he's dropped some jewelry. I wonder if he hid it up on the roof. Is that what's happened? He threw the jewelry on top of the station or hid it in the chimney. Remember, he got dropped off on the station, at the station, to leave town. And I wonder if what he's done is he's hid the jewelry in a chimney or in the eaves, the jewelry bag, before he fled and was caught. Or he was caught at the railway station. So I think what he's done, we know he's adept at climbing. In 1960, after he robbed the place, he's scaled the wall and he's hid the bag of jewelry in the eaves of the roof. And then when he climbed up there to get them in 1980, he was shot and down they fell with him. So 5 is an ornate earring. And then what else have we got? Okay, so here's 1 and 2. Look like they're these things here. They're the ticket and the thing. So I think that would suggest that our shooter was at 1 and 2, maybe. Shooting up and hit him and he fell. And then the shooter dropped these 2 things, if I had to guess. Harry says, I think the platform is too far from the station for him to have fallen. Now, that's an interesting point. Okay, let's see what it says about this. CRC Railway Timetable Booklet. CRC Second Class Return Ticket, Tavernier to Elne. Okay, and then here's 3 and 4. Okay, which are here. Do we have a second person involved in this? Drinking coffee? Let's see. A gum wrapper. Colamint gum wrapper, and a polystyrene cup. So a witness or an accomplice to the shooting was also hanging out. And then here's item 5, which is the jeweled earring. What was the, oh, this is where 5 is. Okay. So we've got some ornate jeweled earring, which is no doubt going to be from the original robbery in the 60s. Is it going to be the special pendant that the brother was working on for the mother? Is it going to be real jewelry or fake jewelry? Noah says, if he fell, wouldn't we know from the autopsy? Well, we absolutely do know from the autopsy that he fell. There's no doubt about that. There is no doubt that he fell and sustained serious injuries from the fall. All right. So let's, for the fun of it, take a look at, leave the interviews for last. All right. So look at these 3 pieces of evidence we have. So let's look at the lab report on this piece of jewelry and see if it's fake. If it's fake, it helps confirm our theory about insurance fraud. All right, ornate lady's earring. It's domed ovoid shape, 25 millimeter long, 8 millimeter wide, 7 millimeter high, excluding the fastening. 19 millimeter high, including fastening. Large central dark red stone surrounded by 3 rings of clear stone, all mounted in gold colored metal. Seahorse trademark on reverse indicates 24 karat gold. Okay. Gold colored, but it's stamped as 24 karat gold. Test. Comparative acid test assay concludes metal structure is 9 karat gold. Refractive index test. Main stone is composite ruby filled with leaded glass. Okay, so we've got fake, we've got, what do they call it? What do you call it when it's jewelry you wear in the theater? There's a name, there's a term of art. Smaller stones are moissanite. Workmanship. Piece was examined by the Federation of Master Jewelers. Costume jewelry. It's costume jewelry. It has no real value. Oh, actually, it's 25,000. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Piece was examined by the Federation of Master Jewelers. Standard of workmanship is very high. If made from 24 karat gold with genuine ruby stone, 66 diamonds, we estimate current retail value of a pair between 25,000 and 30,000 francs. However, the estimated value of this item is 500 to 700 francs. So this is our theory of insurance fraud. Someone has created a replica of this real item that's worth very little, and they've probably reported it as the theft of a 24 karat. It's stamped as 24 karat. So it's a fake. It's a fake, and it was no doubt stolen in the 60s, purposefully set up to be stolen and reported as insurance fraud of this $30,000 item. So insurance fraud really feels strong, like that's what we're dealing with here. But we still have the mystery of the dead brother. All right, and then we've not heard where this came from yet. When I get back to Pavigny, you die. It wouldn't be surprising that this is something that Henry Valentine wrote, and he's saying, I'm going to get back to Pavigny and kill you for turning me in or something. All right, now what have we got here? Ballistics report. High magnification examination of bullet fragments recovered from A, the body of Lawrence Junot on November 13th, and B, the body of Henry Valentine, October 27th. This seems to be suggesting that the same bullet killed Leonce Junot during the robbery that killed Henry Valentine, the robber, 20 years later. We can say with 99% certainty these two 90mm bullets were fired from the same gun. So if you had to guess, what you'd guess is something like Henry Valentine is robbing the place and maybe was set up to kill the brother, killed the brother as part of a planned double scam, insurance scam fraud and killing the brother. And he had to have handed off his gun to someone. And that gun is being used against him. That's going to be curious to see what that was about. All right. So in addition to this trip, so this may be the shooter's ticket. So we should be looking for someone who resides in Elm. All right. So the only thing left in this case are some interviews. No, we've got one more thing. So we've got interviews. And then we've got the visitors list, Henry's Valentine's visitor list. Let's take a look at this. Who's visiting him in the weeks and days before his escape and murder? Most recently is Bernadette. Bernadette visited 3 times on the 22nd, which is 5 days before his murder. That's very suspicious. Why is she in it? She's in at 1:30, out 2:15. Wait, what's happening here? I guess this is out of order, but how could that be? Like here is in at 13:30, out at 14:15. In at 13:25, out at 13:52. How could these overlap? And here she is 2 minutes later, in at 14:17 for 5 minutes. What on earth? Unless these just weren't filled in. And these are different days. Maybe that's how we should read it. They just didn't write down the days. Every week, maybe they write down. So they wrote down 10:15. Then a week later, they started a new date. So sometime before the 22nd, she visited. And sometime in the week that followed, between the 22nd and the 29th, or 27th, since that was when he said she visited. And these are visiting hours, look like they're all around 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Okay, so the son visited on the 15th and then not again. 3 visits by Bernadette within a short period. All right. And then this is a little note before we get to interviews. Here we go. So penitentiary, we've got a letter. Friday, October 29th, 2 days after the murder. This is the penitentiary telling us what he was doing out, perhaps. Dear Captain Forcal, Capitan Forcal, in confirmation of our telephone conversation, Henry Valentine was eligible for release from prison during the next 2 months, the exact date to be determined by the Board of Parole, and was therefore transferred from the high security facility at Regartre to our open prison here at Abrigal on September 13th this year. Our purpose here at Abrigal is to prepare long-term prisoners for their move back into society. They must learn many new things about the world and how it has changed during their incarceration. The cost of items in the shops, the busy nature of the traffic on our streets, the skills and rules of employment, and so on and so forth. Ours is an experimental program designed to reduce the number of prisoners who reoffend when they are released. As they progress through our programs, they are gradually given greater freedoms. Those include the option to spend individual days out of prison unaccompanied, so that they may witness the modern world for themselves and report back to our helpers specific difficulties which they encountered. They must return to us by 8 p.m. or else lose the privileges their good behavior has earned for them. This was the case with Henry Valentine. Valentine was, according to the Regard governor, a model prisoner, keeping himself fit in the prison gym, causing no trouble to the guards. I am, of course, aware that certain sections of the media would have liked to see his sentence extended rather than reduced, but we concern ourselves solely with rehabilitation rather than revenge, with the positive progress the prisoner has shown rather than dwelling on the details of their crimes. Under the rules by which we operate, Valentine was fully entitled to an early release and had earned the opportunity to spend a day outside our walls. That it should have ended so tragically is, of course, regrettable. In answer to your specific request, I've attached a copy of the visitor log for Valentine. I believe only his children visited him during his time here, and the Regartre governor tells me he had no visitors in all his years there, not even his wife. A tragic tale with a tragic ending, I think you will agree. Okay, so I think we're getting a little bit of a further picture here. So he was allowed out on day trips, so he surely took this trip legally. He didn't escape. He took a trip to Pavigny. I think he was getting up on the roof to get the jewelry he hid. And someone, this is my guess, someone was watching him from the woods here and saw him retrieve it and shot him. Although you'd think you might be better off waiting for him to come down with the jewelry rather than being here coming out. But okay, now, but I think there was another little piece of evidence here. He had no visitors while he was in the real big prison, not his wife, right? And here is his wife supposedly making 3 visits to him in the last week. It's possible it's just because the prison moved closer, but probably I'm guessing this is either not the wife or the wife is involved in a scam to get him killed. Like, this is not a real loving wife visiting him and never visited him in 20 years at the real prison. This is an accomplice or someone setting him up. Possibly same with the son, although I don't know what's going on with the son. It feels to me like the son was probably set up. Were we told why they arrested the son? Maybe we're going to hear it in his interview. All right, so the only evidence left for us are interviews. So let's just see who we have. We've got interview with the son, interview with Bernadette, the woman who visited him last, interview with the accomplice, interview with the surviving brother, who we suspect, and Marie Valentine, who we don't know. So let's do them. Well, let's do them in that order. So these are, we remember we read the interview with the brother, the surviving jewelry store brother in the 60s, but these are all now follow-up interviews in the 80s. All right, so here we go. Here's Marie Valentine's interview. We don't know who she is. Let's see what she says. Transcript of interview with Marie Valentine, 11:15 Thursday, October 28th, at Pontview Regional Headquarters. Present Capitan Forcal, Lieutenant Abray. Firstly, Madame Valentine, may I express my condolences at your husband's death. Okay, Marie is the husband. Marie is the wife, not Bernadette. So who is Bernadette? Maybe not the wife, the daughter? Let's see. Ha! I don't see why either of us should mourn his death, Captain. Henry was a terrible man, a murderer, a thief, a man who cared nothing for his wife and children. I will shed no tears. I understand, madame, but we must find out who was responsible for his death. If I knew, I would kiss them. They have taken the fear from my life. I have lived with the knowledge that Henry might walk back through the door at any moment, and it has almost broken me. When did you last speak with your husband? Maybe 1962, 63? I don't know exactly. It was shortly after he was sent to Regard prison for the murder of Leonce Junot. I was left with 2 young children to raise and no money with which to do it. I knew Henry would have something hidden away somewhere which would help, but he refused to tell me anything. What do you mean when you say something hidden? I wasn't blind to my husband's activities, Captain. He had money to spend on his friends and himself, though we saw precious little, my children and I. Henry was a burglar, a good one, if such a thing can be said about a thief. I used to call him the squirrel for 2 reasons. Firstly, he was always an excellent climber, trees, walls, mountains. He could quickly ascend anything, such was his skill. Secondly, he would hide things away like a squirrel hides nuts for the winter. He knew he could be caught if he tried to dispose of the proceeds of his crimes too quickly, and would often hide them away until such time as investigations had been reduced. We were desperate for money when Henry was sent away, and I would gladly have used whatever valuables he had hidden away to put food into the mouths of my children, even the jewels he stole from the Junot brothers, my poor Joel and Bernadette. We had nothing, and yet their father would not help. He would tell me nothing. But your family survived. Well, yes, we survived. I cleaned houses, I dug potatoes, I hunted deer and wild pigs. I harvested the vines. I did anything I could do to feed my children. And I taught them everything I know about how to survive in this world. Now they're grown into good, strong adults, and I know I did my work as a mother well. And how old are your children now? Joel is 25 and Bernadette 23. They were too small to realize what was happening when their father was sent to prison, but as they grew up, they were teased by the other children and some adults too. They lived with the shame that their father was a murderer. Have either of your children spoken to their father in the last 20 years? You must know that they went together to visit him in prison. This was not my idea. I would prefer that Henry not rot alone in hell. When I found out, I was furious, but Bernadette, my dear sweet Bernadette, she said they had only done so to help me. Oh, how so? They knew I was frantic with worry at the thought that Henry might return to Bavigny once released. He was a violent man, especially when he had been drinking. I had rebuilt our lives in his absence. I feared he might come back and destroy them all once again. They agreed to go and talk with him in prison and ask what he planned to do. So they went to see Henry. They went together on the train to Abrigal. They told me they were visiting friends there. They left early one morning and returned the same night. That is when they told me where they had really been. I was so angry, but they told me that Henry had no intention of coming back here. He planned to settle in the north and find work as a guide in the mountains. I felt like the weight of the world had fallen from my shoulders. And now you've told me that he did return to Pavigny and has been killed in the Pavigny station. I don't know how or why, but I thank heaven and all the angels that this devil of a man has been removed from our lives forever. I must ask you to tell me, Madame Valentine, where you were yesterday between 10 and 1400. Ha! I did not kill Henry, Captain, although part of me wishes I had. Yesterday I was home, spending my day with the cats and my housework. Can anyone confirm this? Only my chickens in the yard, unless you wish to interview my cats, Babette and Gaston. And you were in the house the whole time between 10 and 2. I was in the house most of the day, only stepping outside briefly to call in my cats during a sudden shower. But that ended almost as soon as it began. Perhaps you would like to check the inside of my house for a hidden arsenal of guns. Ask yourself, Captain, do I look like a murderer? Madame, I only wish to understand the truth of this affair. Then you must look for your killer elsewhere. But when you find him, be sure to pass on my heartfelt thanks for the service he has done me. Okay. So Marie Valentine didn't want him to come back. He abandoned her and the kids. Clearly, she's not our murderer, though. Okay, now the two children. Now they've arrested the son for this. On what basis? We don't know or we don't remember. So let's see if we can learn about here what they have on him. Transcript of interview with Joel Valentine, 10/17, Thursday, October 28th, day after the murder. Joel Valentine, you must understand the seriousness of your position. Your father, Henry Valentine, absconded from prison and traveled to Pavigny, where he was shot dead yesterday morning. You were arrested close to the station by my officers and found to be in possession of a gun. What do you have to say for yourself? I see he's got a gun. I did not kill him, Captain, though I gladly would have done so if someone else had not done it first. My gun has not been fired. Even your plotting oafs must be able to see that. Careful, monsieur, you are in no position to insult the police. Now, why were you there? What did you plan? Look, I thought I might threaten my father to reveal the whereabouts of the stolen jewelry. He came to the station because that is where it has been hidden all these years. I had been promised a handsome reward from Yvonne Janot if I had it recovered. A reward which I could use to get away from all this. Do you have any idea what it's like to be known as a murderer's son? To grow up in poverty, despised by everyone in the town, but unable to leave. Day after day after day, people are whispering behind my back or pointing me out to their children, all because of my murderous father. How did you know he would be at the Pavillon station? Because we bought him the ticket. My sister and I made a plan to trick our father into leaving prison to return to Pavigny. We also planned to alert the police so that he would be locked away again rather than released. Then I thought, why should we not benefit in another way? I could take the jewelry from my father before Bernadette called the police. Father could hardly claim I had stolen it from him. With him safely back in prison for several more years, Mama and Bernadette would be safe and I could get away from this hell. So you planned this with your sister? Yes. No. Well, some of it. Bernadette did not know I planned to take the jewelry from my father. She did not know. I'm not proud of my actions, Captain. As far as Bernadette was concerned, I was away from Pavignon, and she would telephone the police anonymously to have our father arrested while he awaited the return train to Abrego. You admit to helping your father leave prison, buying him a ticket to Pavigny, going to confront him armed with a gun and with the intent to rob him. But you expect us to believe you did not kill him. I was too late. You must believe me. I hid behind the bushes and watched as my father left the train. There was only one other passenger, and my father paused and pretended to tie up his shoelaces while they left the platform. Then, so fast I almost missed it, he climbed up onto the roof of the station. Took him only seconds. I could see what he was doing from where I hid. Upon the roof, he reached into a small space and pulled out a canvas bag, which he tucked into his belt. He had just started to climb down when the other passenger came back around the corner with a gun and shot up at him. My father fell the last few meters and hit the ground hard. The bag flew open, and I could see jewels sparkling as they spilled across the platform. The passenger quickly gathered them up and disappeared back around the corner. It all happened very fast. There was blood on the platform. My father did not move or make a sound. I was shocked. I quickly realized I should not be there, how it might look if I were stopped at that moment. So I ran back to where my car was parked, straight into the arms of one of your men. So you claim the killer was on the train with your father. How could they possibly know which train he would be on? Are you suggesting he was followed all the way from Abrigal? This passenger you say was responsible. Describe them to me. Male, female, tall, short, old, young? It happened very quickly, Captain. They wore a long dark coat with the collar pulled up, kind of black knitted hat, and a scarf over their lower face. Surely you could tell if it was a man or a woman. I did not pay much attention at first. I wanted only that they should leave the station so I could confront my father. I was angry at the things he said to me. Then, when the shooting began, I ducked down behind the bushes from instinct and fear and only saw them briefly. I have the impression in my mind that it was a small man, but I could not be certain. I would say the person is not tall. The age? Impossible to say. When they left the train, did they come from the same carriage as your father? No. He was at the front of the train, but this person came from the rear. That's why father had to wait while they walked down the platform and left the station. Or at least pretended to leave. So your story is that a mysterious person followed your father from the train and shot him. Then they took some jewelry, which your father had retrieved by climbing to the station roof. Then the person disappeared, and you cannot say whether this person was male, female, tall, old, or the color of their hair, or if they had 3 eyes and a wooden leg. This is preposterous. It is the truth, I swear. You try my patience, Monsieur Valentine. Perhaps a night in our cells may help you remember more details, or at least invent a more plausible story. Lieutenant, please take him away. All right, well, I mean, he's just given out all the things that we think we had figured out. That our guy climbed up to the roof, retrieved the jewelry he stashed, and then was shot by someone from the platform. The only clue he gives us is the guy was not tall, the shooter. We suspect it's the brother Junot. But let's see. Here's Bernadette, who visited him several times. And now we know they've got him a ticket. Let's see if she admits her role in all this. Firstly, Mademoiselle Valentine, may I express my condolences at your father's death. Thank you, Captain. Though in reality, Papa left my life many years ago when he was locked away. I understand it was only recently he re-entered your life and that of your brother. Ah, yes, but only as a stranger, you understand. Joel and I were only children when Papa left us and Mama to fend for ourselves. We all suffered because of his actions, none more so than Mama. But you went with Joel to visit him in prison. Why? It was necessary, you see. Mama was distraught with worry that Papa might return at any time. The prison would not tell us when he might be released. At any time of the day or night, Papa might walk through the door, and there was nothing we could do to prevent it. So Joel and I decided we must go to the prison and try to find out what Papa planned to do when released. We told Mama we were going to visit friends for the day and took the early train. And you saw your father. Yes, it did not go well. He made a great fuss of me, saying how beautiful I was and how I had inherited my good looks from him. But he was not so kind to Joel. He said Joel was scrawny and weak, and he would have to work much harder when the real man of the family returned home. So he planned to return to Pavanier. Oh, yes. And was there anything else? Well, come now, Mademoiselle Valentine, you must tell us everything. Then you should know I am responsible for his death at Pavanier Station. How so? As Joel and I traveled back on the train, I said how odd it was that Papa had mentioned the station several times during our meeting. Joel had noticed this too. We knew, of course, that Papa was arrested at the station and that the jewelry and the gun used in the robbery were never found. The police made a very thorough search of the station at the time. Then again, Mama had told us of his squirrel nickname and how he liked to hide stolen goods away. The most probable answer must surely be that Papa had hidden things at the station which the police had been unable to find. So we made a plan. We would tell Papa that his beloved station was to be demolished immediately. We could persuade him to tell us where the jewelry was hidden. We might inform the police and have Papa's sentence extended. Because the jewelry was never recovered, he was only charged with the murder back in 1961. Exactly so. And did he believe you? Oh, yes, he believed my story about the station. I said I'd overheard a conversation while in the mayor's office that work would begin on November 1st, and told him I thought what a shame it was that he would not be free to see his beloved station for one last time. I left the matter hanging in the air for a moment, then asked if he would like me to photograph anywhere in the station for him, or perhaps collect some small souvenir. He understood immediately what I meant. He smiled and said I was undoubtedly his daughter, but he would prefer to collect the souvenir himself. He said it was possible to travel to and from Pavanier in one day, was it not? He was allowed to leave the prison unaccompanied on certain days, provided he remained in Abrigal and returned before 2000, 8 p.m. If I would buy him a return ticket from Abrigal to Pavanier for Wednesday, he might travel there himself to collect a souvenir, something which he might share with his clever daughter. I quickly realized this was a better option than we had planned. If I knew when Papa was to arrive at Pavanier Station, I could telephone the police and he would be arrested there, so I agreed to the plan. And you bought him a return ticket? Yes. That very moment I went out and got a ticket, brought it back to him at the prison. I wasn't helping him to escape as he intended to return to prison. I believe he thought he would hide the jewels elsewhere and collect them on his release sometime in the coming months. We recovered this ticket from your father's body. Is this the one you bought? So now she's showing him this. He's showing her this ticket. She says, yes, Captain, there are a number of connections you must make at various stations along the route. From Abrigal, you change at Pelleville, St. Xavier, Fenestil, La Arconne, and Pontview. But if all went well, he would be at Pavanier Station for almost an hour. That would be plenty of time for me to telephone the police and for them to arrest him. So we're told a little bit about the train from Abrigal. So we have the program, we have the train schedule from Elm. But now she's telling us a little bit about the train from Abrigal. Change at Pelleville, St. Xavier, Fenestil, and then Orcon. So, oh, there's Abrigal. So Abrigal, you do some stuff and then you get here. And then maybe you take this route this way. So his father was going to get on this train here. I wonder if this means someone could have caught him at Orcon. All right, let's keep going. Number of connections. If all went well, he would be having a station for almost an hour. That would be plenty of time for me to telephone the police and for them to arrest him. So when we received an anonymous call yesterday at 11 saying Henry Valentine had been seen at Pavigny Station, that was you? Yes, Captain. Of course, no one could know for certain that Papa would really be on the train. But if he had decided not to come or had been delayed along the way, nothing would be traced back to Joel or me. And your mother knew nothing of this? No, nothing. We could not bear for her to know that Papa would return if we did not act, so Joel and I told her that Papa had planned a new life in the north. When she heard this, she cried with relief. And Joel? He was pleased that I had convinced Papa of the station's imminent destruction, but worried about the change in our plan. Then he saw the merit of the new arrangement. We had to travel away on business for a few days, but he had to travel away on business for a few days, but said he was confident that I could handle everything in his absence. After all, I only had to make one phone call, and we would remove Papa from our lives for many more years. Papa's death is not what we planned, Captain, but I know Joel will rejoice with Mama and me when he returns. You should know, Mademoiselle Valentine, that your brother Joel was arrested near Pavigny Station yesterday and was carrying a gun. What? Joel? That's impossible. Do you still insist the plan was not to kill Henry Valentine? No, 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 no. That was never the plan. It is strange that the brother and sister are both confessing to setting the father up, but they have different stories. That's weird. Not sure how to explain that part. All right, we've got 2 more interviews left, and that's the end of the case. So those 2 interviews better crack this case open. I'm not sure how to explain the different story given by the 2 siblings. Are they trying to cover for each other? She says the brother had to leave town and leaves it up to her. He clearly didn't leave town. And then we've got the fake jewelry. So one thing that occurs to me, before we take a break, let's just discuss this. We were saying that it was insurance fraud, right? And so he stole the jewelry, but it was fake jewelry. Then the jewelry owners report it. They get to keep the insurance money and the real jewelry. But there is another possibility now, right? The other possibility is that clearly a bunch of people had an idea that he might have hidden the jewelry up in the train station. So is it possible that the stolen jewelry was real and someone has gone up and replaced it, and then he's come down with the newly replaced jewelry and been killed, and that someone has figured out where it was and stolen the real jewelry from the bag, and that it wasn't insurance fraud? Not sure what that gets us. And the analysis of the jewelry said it was very high quality workmanship. Fake jewelry, but high quality workmanship. That does implicate the original brother who worked in the jewelry store. But I'm not sure I understand. The best theory might be that the brother is working for the other jeweler. I'm not sure. But time to take another break. I'll see you in 8 minutes. We're back for our last session here, Shirley, on this case. We've only got 2 more interviews to read. We've got what feels like we understand the basic contours, but things aren't quite gelling. The chat has asked for a recap, but I think what we'll do is we'll read these last 2 interviews first. And then we'll recap and see if we can make sense of all this. So we've got an interview, a 1982 interview with the original accomplice and driver, Antoine Papinel. This is the guy that called in and confessed to being the driver and arranging this original theft. Okay, let's see. Transcript of interview with Antoine Papinel on Thursday, October 28th. Papinel, I must ask you some questions regarding the death of your friend Henry Valentine at Pavigny Station yesterday. Friend? You joke. Captain, friend. Henry Valentine swore revenge on me as he was led from the court 20 years ago and has threatened to kill me. You see this? Papinel produces a note from his pocket. It's this. He says, you see this? Look at this. When I get back to Pavigny, you die. Is this from Henry Valentine? Who else? He's a violent man and swore to make me suffer when he was convicted. To know that he was soon to be released and I was in grave danger made me fear for my life. And when did this arrive? Sometime last week. Ivan opened it, but gave it over when he realized it was for me. That's a huge clue. He says, Ivan opened it. Ivan opened it. I wonder if they're just going to let this sneak through. Ivan opened it, but gave it over when he realized it was for me. Valentine hated you because you handed him to the police after the murder of Léonce Junot. I could not be a party to a murder, Captain, but there was more to it than that. You must tell me everything, Papinel. It has weighed heavily on my mind all these years, Captain. The prosecuting counsel in this case, he made a suggestion to me. If I would cooperate fully in the prosecution of Valentine, then they would recommend my sentence be as lenient as possible. They were only interested in convicting Valentine for the murder and wanted to get the maximum sentence possible. There was the matter of the gun. Yes, what about it? They wanted me to say I had seen Valentine with the gun before the robbery. I could not do that, Capitan, for in truth I never saw the gun at all. Not before the robbery and not after. And what do you suppose happened to the gun? I omitted one detail from my testimony, because the prosecution said it could cast doubt on certain elements of their case. When I was driving Valentine to the station, I screamed at him, "You idiot! Why on earth did you take a gun with you?" And he replied, "I did not." He claimed he had acted only in self-defense. I didn't believe him. He's always been violent. Everyone knows how his poor wife suffered before he was locked away. I didn't believe him then, and I don't think I believe him now. But in that twisted mind of his, I was responsible for his imprisonment. Then you, more than anyone, must have a motive to kill Valentine. You were afraid for your life. Perhaps so, Capitan, but I did not do it. I will shed no tears over the death of Henry Valentine. I may even raise a glass to whoever has rid me of this evil man, but I did not kill him. Then where were you yesterday between 10 and 2 p.m.? I was working in the garden of my employer, Ivan Junot. Junot? You work for Junot? Of course, I've worked for Ivan for many years now, since my release from prison. But you were involved in the robbery of his workshop, the robbery in which his brother was killed. Why would he employ you? Ivan and I have known each other for many years, Capitan. He was disappointed I should try to rob him, but I did inform the police so they could capture Valentine, and then I helped secure his conviction. Ivan was grateful for that and offered me some work. No one else would employ an ex-convict. Can anyone confirm you were there in the garden throughout this time? Ivan Junot. He was sat in the garden reading the whole time. We chatted a little as I worked. It was a fine day, apart from the sudden shower, and we both enjoyed the warmth of the sun. And can Junot vouch that you were there the whole time and did not leave to go to Pavigny Station? The furthest I went was to the kitchen to make coffee, Captain. Ivan would have noticed if I disappeared for more than a few minutes, and it would have taken me near half an hour to get to the station and back. Ask Ivan, I was there the whole time. You can be certain we will do that, Papignon. Okay, so this just confirms our theory about the other brother, who's Ivan Junot, setting up this whole thing. But then we get this extra little new piece of information about the gun. Originally, it's testified that our Henry Valentine had a gun, used it to shoot this guy, but now we think he didn't have a gun at all, which further backs the idea that maybe the brother killed his other brother either before or after, and that Valentine never shot anyone. So his new statement of what Valentine says is that he didn't have a gun, not before or after. He claimed he acted only in self-defense. I'm still not sure what that would mean. He's not claiming that the body was there already dead. But maybe he knocked him out or something. All right, now we're going to hear finally from who we suspect is the mastermind behind all this. Ivan Junot. Let's see what he says. Monsieur Junot, we are investigating the death of Henry Valentine yesterday morning at Pavigny Station. Can you tell us, please, where you were between 10 and 2 p.m.? In my garden, Captain. I haven't been to the station in years. I understand, of course, you need to speak with me about this, as the man killed my dear brother. But I have moved on in my life since that terrible day. Oh, how so? Losing Leonce in such tragic circumstances was a shock, but once Valentine was imprisoned, I threw all my energies into the business. Leonce Brothers now owns 7 shops and a workshop 10 times the size of the cramped little attic where we started. I employ over 50 shop staff and craftsmen. And you employ Antoine Papinel? Yes, Captain. Antoine was pivotal in putting my brother's killer in jail. When he was released, he needed a job and I needed a handyman. He has been my aide for many years now and is completely trustworthy. But he robbed you. He planned the burglary at your workshop. I would not call that trustworthy. Captain, times were very different then. There was poverty unlike anything we see today. Antoine made a mistake, but served his punishment. I visited him in prison and promised him a job once he was released. I like to keep my promises. What were his duties? Some gardening, some driving. He's an excellent cook. Sometimes he'll visit my shops on my behalf to talk with the managers. He can be trusted with most things. And yesterday it was gardening. Yes, there were vegetables to harvest, fruit to pick, grass to be cut. As you can see, Antoine keeps my garden beautifully tidy. There's not so much as a fallen leaf in the wrong place. Unlike that old train station, I sat in my chair enjoying the glorious sunshine. It really was a fine day to be relaxing. I read, while Antoine took care of everything. Look at this part, notice here about unlike the old train station. He says he hasn't been to the train station in years, and here he is complaining about it being unkept. Can anyone confirm your whereabouts at that time, aside from you and Papineau? Certainly. There were deliveries throughout the day. Some letters on my table when I came back from the toilet. Postman must have given them to Antoine. He usually calls around 9 in the morning. And we took a delivery of bread and pastries from Boulangerie Reine Rue. A bit before 12, Jean-Francois, who is the chef's nephew, delivered as usual. So you see, right there are two people who can vouch for both me and Antoine. You must understand, Antoine is a man of deep beliefs, a man of peace. He always has been. It would take something extraordinary for him to be involved in anything as violent as a murder. With respect, Captain, I think you should be looking closer to home for Valentine's killer. What do you mean? Valentine's son, Joel, came to see me last week. He had some crazy idea he could recover the jewelry stolen from our workshop all those years ago and wanted to know if I would buy it from him. Perhaps you should be talking to him. What did you tell him? I have no interest in those items, Captain. In truth, they must belong to the insurance company now, since they paid me for their loss. I would not deal in stolen goods. I have the reputation of my business and my good standing in the community to consider. Would those items be difficult to sell? Certainly. They are unique pieces which I created during my most creative time. Any jeweler of note would recognize these and be suspicious if someone tried to sell them to him. Okay, so it's useful. It's worth pointing out here that it seems very clear that this jeweler is involved in insurance fraud and has created these fake jewels, reported them stolen. But it's still a bit of a mystery who did the actual shooting because of alibis. So let's see what the chat says. Surviving jeweler told the driver to rob the shop. The dead brother was there unexpectedly, pulled his gun, so Henry shot. Junot shot Henry to avoid discovery of the fake jewels. The dead jeweler kept the gun and was ready to use it. Henry must have struggled with him, and the gun went off, killing Junot. But why didn't Henry say that at trial? Okay, so this is a very good observation by DJ Moneycut. I think it's exactly right. The gun that killed the Junot dealer is going to be the gun that the jeweler had, not Henry Valentine. So what's happened is that they set up, this surviving jeweler, Yvonne, set up a robbery of his shop, created fake jewelry, and when Henry Valentine came in and robbed the place, he struggled with the jeweler who wasn't supposed to be there, and he got killed in self-defense. And then now the question is, what happened to that gun? Now, if he left it in the house, in the jewelry store, and it was taken by the other jeweler, do we have confirmation that that guy was there first? Let me see. I want to see if that guy was on scene to take his brother's gun. He enjoyed life. He married a girl in England, brought her home. We worked together. He doesn't like him very much. He doesn't want him involved in the store. There's the insurance. Okay. He would shoot anyone. That's why he kept a gun in his desk. And he says, well, we should have been gone. He shouldn't have been there. I'm always away. We think he's hired someone to rob the place. Maybe he didn't expect his brother to be there. Maybe he didn't purposely set his brother up, but his brother got killed. Okay, so I want to see this part. I want to see if he's the first to find the body. Was it unusual for Leonce to be at work that time? Unheard of. I spoke with his wife earlier to tell her the news. She said he went to collect the pendant he had made for our mother. Perhaps he left it open. No. Always be locked. Where did you go after church? I walked home with my wife, received a phone call about an urgent work matter, drove to the workshop. The door was locked. I opened it, went inside, relocked it, climbed the stairs. He saw the body. Okay, so this is important. He's the first to find the body. Good, okay. So what we think happened now is he stumbled on the dead body of his brother. He realizes he has set up this robbery that has resulted in the death of his brother. He picks up the gun from the ground that belonged to his brother. He pockets it. So Yves Junot has the gun that was used to kill his brother. That makes him the murderer of Henry Valentine at the station. I think that makes complete sense. That was the critical piece of the puzzle I need to have confirmed, that he was in a position to take the gun. So I don't think he hired our guy Henry to kill his brother. And in fact, that was one of the struggles, is that when we were originally thinking about it, that seemed a little bit plausible, but the details of that would be very hard to make work. First of all, he's not the guy who contacted Henry Valentine. He contacted Papignow. And it's hard to purposefully arrange a murder of his brother when the guy breaking in didn't intend to murder anyone. So I think it makes much more sense now that it's just he set up this insurance fraud robbery with Papignow, and his brother got accidentally killed during it. But he's realized, well, I didn't like my brother that much, and I'm responsible for his death because I set this whole thing up. So he covers it all up. He takes the gun. He probably created this mess, this thing. But I'm not sure. So how do we... Okay, so then he must know, Junot, Yves Junot, Yvonne Junot, he must know that Henry Valentine is going to be getting out of jail. He's going to be retrieving the jewelry and discover that it's fake. And then it's all going to come back to this guy. So he has to kill Henry Valentine. Although you'd think he'd want to recover the jewelry. And not just... Oh, he did recover. He scooped it all up from the walkway, but he missed one. Okay, so the question is, how has he faked his alibi? Has he just convinced Antoine to lie about it? Maybe he's just convinced Antoine to lie about it. Or Antoine says that he was sitting reading the whole time while he was gardening. But he does give us all these deliveries. But I think maybe he's just convinced Papignow, who is a criminal after all, that the two of them alibied each other. Doesn't that make more sense? Perry says, perhaps Ivan got Antoine to kill him. It's possible, I guess. But I don't think so. I'll tell you why. First of all, you would still leave you the issue of the alibi. They are each other's alibi. But the other thing is, Papignow's admitting to lying about the gun. It doesn't feel like he knew about it. Otherwise, why would he admit this? I think this guy, Papignow, is kind of a patsy. He's not a mastermind. He's not a murderer. He's not deeply, he's sort of a low-level robber. It's this guy is the mastermind who's using this guy's naivete. And I think the only question I have is about the alibi. And then I still don't know why the two siblings are lying. And then the brother says he talked. Was it the brother or the sister? The sister comes up with her own plan. It's a little weird that the sister has come up with the plan. Like, how does this guy know to meet the train? Sorry, how does Ivan know that he's going to be on this train? Only the brother and sister know about that plan. So that troubles me. She comes up with the plan. And is the brother working with them? Is that that's a weird situation we have here. Like, how does Ivan know to catch out Henry at the train? We bought the ticket. My sister and I made a plan. The brother is absolutely there watching what happened. So I think, where does this guy talk about Joel? I think this guy convinced the brother to do this. Valentine's son came to see me last week. He had a crazy idea he could recover the jewelry and wanted to know if I would buy it from him. Okay. And he claims he told him he has no interest. All right, so what's happened is the brother and sister have decided to rob the father, trick him into thinking the train station's being torn down, and he has to go get his jewelry. The brother goes to Ivan, and says, hey, I'm going to be able to get your expensive jewelry back. We've tricked my father. Next week, he's going to come into town. He's going to retrieve the jewelry. We're going to take it from him, and we'll give it back to you, and you give us 20,000 francs for it. And this guy starts to realize, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Valentine's going to come. He's going to get the jewelry. They're going to discover it's fake. The brother and sister are going to discover it's fake, and my business is ruined. So he has told the brother, good idea. You get the jewelry. When are you meeting him? On October 28th? Great. You get the jewelry from him and you bring it to me. And then he knows where the brother's coming from, used his train schedule to intercept the brother at La Orcan or Elaine, wherever, has followed the father down. The brother is waiting at the station. And our guy, Ivan, has come out of the train and done the murder. And picked up the jewelry and run away. So that's it. That's it. Ivan was told about the plan by the brother and sister. And maybe the brother has his own side little plan that the sister doesn't know about. They made a plan. I would take the jewelry before Bernadette called. Bernadette did not know I planned to take the jewelry from my father. That's because he came up with this plan talking to the jewelry store owner who really double-crossed them. Okay, so the only question in my mind now is the alibi. Is it just Antoine covering for him? Or is Antoine telling us that he was sitting there reading? I sat in the garden. He was sat in the garden reading the whole time. We chatted a little as I worked. It was a fine day apart from the sudden shower, and we both enjoyed the warmth of the sun. That's the second person that's mentioned the rain shower. The sister mentions it too. I think it's just a fake alibi, I think they're just covering from him lying. Let me look at this guy's alibis again. He seems to suggest other people saw him there. He says, "What were you doing?" There were vegetables to harvest, fruit to pick, grass to be cut. As you can see, Antoine keeps my garden beautifully tidy, not so much as a fallen leaf in the wrong place, unlike the old train station. We seem to have already caught him in a lie. He says, haven't been to the train station in a year, but now he's referencing it being dirty. So that's suspicious. But now let's see. I sat in my chair enjoying the glorious sunshine. It was really a fine day to be relaxing. Maybe it's the fact he doesn't mention the rainstorm. He doesn't know that he doesn't remember it was raining. I read while Antoine took care of everything. Can anyone confirm your whereabouts? But we think he had to be on the train with our guy for a while. Then he says, can anyone confirm your whereabouts aside from you and the other guy? And he says, certainly, there were deliveries throughout the day. Letters on my table. The postman must have given them to Antoine. He usually calls around 9. Then we took delivery of bread and pastries a bit before 12. Those are two people who can both vouch for both of us. When do we think the actual murder took place? Does our autopsy have a time of death? Why doesn't our autopsy have a time of death estimated? That's not very good police work. I guess this is preliminary. They haven't done that test yet. What about... Here we go. Okay. It's a Wednesday. Wednesday the 27th. So 10:50 a.m. Is that when we think this happened at 10:50? Is that what our Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday. Okay, and this is a weekday. The 28th is a Thursday. So We're looking at a Wednesday. Okay, so I think this means that the train arrives at around 10:50. That's when he's killed, at around 10:50 a.m. So does that help us? Does that help us with our alibis here? He says postman comes at 9 and then bread before 12. So there you go. That window between 9 and 12 is when he has to get there. We're told elsewhere that it's maybe a half an hour to the train station. So I think he actually could pretend to be reading for like that hour, pretend to have dozed off. Where were you between 10 and 1400? In the gardener. He was reading. The furthest I went was into the kitchen. Yvonne would have noticed. It would have taken me half an hour to get to the train station back. So only a half hour to get there and back, 15 minutes each way. So I think fairly easy for our guy to sneak off. He doesn't have to just get there though, I guess. Let's be smart about it. We're told he's on the train, in the rear of the train. He actually has to get on at Elm. Oh, is that? So this is his Pavinier to Elm round trip. I see. I was thinking this was the brother's ticket, but now I think what's happened is that our guy has gotten on the 928 to Elm and then taken it back from Elm to Pavinier, which is the train that our Henry Valentine is on. So I think this is our ticket from our killer, who's Yvonne, who's just taken a quick trip to Elm and back because that's how he's intercepted Henry's train and how he's riding behind him. So I think that's what we've got here. But that means that Yvonne should have been missing from 9:20 or so to 11, which would mean this guy probably has to be lying about his alibi, don't we think? All right, so assuming that we haven't missed anything critical, which I wonder if there's anything we might be missing. I think, let's see if we can answer these questions. Who killed Leonce? Okay, so we still think Henry Valentine killed him, but in defense, struggled with his gun, struggled with Leonce's gun, and killed him. Who killed Henry Valentine? So now we think it's actually Yvonne Junot. And what was the motivation for the raid? What was the motivation for the robbery? And we think that's insurance fraud. I mean, I guess the question, this is a little vague. The motivation to arrange the robbery was Yvonne wanting to do insurance fraud with the fake jewelry. And where was the gun that killed Leonce Junot from 61 to 1982? It was in this guy's possession. Okay, so any disagreement with any of that while I get ready to put in our answers? Anyone else want to come up with any alternate theories? Any doubts, any questions, any observations that we might have overlooked? Who killed the brother earlier? Our theory is that it was Henry Valentine, but in self-defense. Basically, he went in unarmed to rob the place, and the brother confronted him with a gun. They struggled over it, and the brother got killed by his own gun. But the whole thing was set up by the other brother. DJ Moneycut says, do we need a more specific location for the gun? I don't think so. I don't think we do. All right, let's put in here. What case are we working on? Are we told the case number? So on our little stamps here, we've given a case. So I think 914827 seems like the case. Okay, here we go. Who killed Leonce Junot? All right, so we have RPS records show that 3 outstanding issues rendered this case impossible to prosecute. If you can demonstrate sufficient progress by answering one or more of these key questions, RPS may be able to reopen the investigation. All right, let me look at the chat before I jump to anything here. Noah says, it feels weird the answers to 2 and 4 would be the same. Who killed Henry? And 4, where was the gun? Possibly. If he was going to hide the gun somewhere, I would guess the strong box where the jewels were. I don't think it's going to ask us for that specific information. Possibly it will. We'll find out. So is everybody on board with this set of answers? If not, it's time to get on the record how you differ. So I'm saying the answer is Henry Valentine killed him in self-defense, struggling over the gun that belonged to Leonce, and that Yvonne Junot killed Henry Valentine in order to recover the jewels. What was the motivation for the raid? The way I'm answering this, we'll see how it asks it in the question, is that it was insurance fraud to fake a robbery of valuable jewels when they really weren't valuable. And then where was the gun that killed Leonce? I'm going to say it was in the possession of Yvonne Junot. Let me point out one thing, though, one sort of logical flaw. I think those are the right answers. That's what I'm going to go with. But I do want to point out one logical flaw in this. Okay, imagine the scenario as we've described it. Yvonne sets up a robbery of his own jewelry shop as part of an insurance fraud to get money because things are tight. It works. They have to get this guy Henry put in jail. No one knows the jewels are fake. He gets the insurance money and he grows his business, right? He's doing great now. He's got tons of shops. Now the brother comes to him and says, hey, look, we're going to rob my father of the jewelry he stole, right? And will you buy it back for me? Wouldn't the smart thing to do to say, yes, I will buy it back from you, and let the son rob him and buy back the fake jewelry at 10% on the dollar? You still make a huge profit, and no one's any wiser. Why would you go to all the trouble? Maybe it's because you believe that the father is not going to let it go. Perry says he wanted to make the fake jewels disappear, but that's my point. Wouldn't the easiest way to make the fake jewels disappear be to buy them? And say, oh yeah, look at them and say, yeah, these are real. These are my jewels. You got them, to the son. And here you go. Here's 10,000 francs for them. You know, I can't pay you full list price. Like, why go to the trouble of killing this guy when the son already wants to sell them to you? But I guess if we're being realistic, this guy might be sitting there saying, look, my whole life rides on this working, and this son is a fuck up, and he's never going to be able to steal the jewelry from his father. And even if he does, the father's never going to let it go. And the only sure way for me to make this all go away is to kill the father myself. Like, maybe this guy's just like, I cannot take a chance. And then the other piece of this solution is the alibis. And we're just going to say that I guess my answer is that Antoine Papignon is already a known liar and is working with our guy, Yvon Junot, and he's covering for him. That's the only explanation, because I don't think he could get away for that whole time. All right, so is anyone going to disagree? Before I put in the answers, if you're going to disagree and you want credit for being right, you got to get on the record now. Marlene Schlichter says, wasn't he complaining about insurance increase on a recent robbery? He wasn't saying on a recent robbery, but he was complaining about the insurance prices, for sure. But that's just to remind us that he had these things insured for a lot of money. DJ says, realistically, insurance fraud limitations must be over by now. Well, that's a good point. I mean, you don't even have to go that far, right? You could just say, look, if they recover this jewelry and they find it's fake, they have to prove it. They had to prove that I made it fake. And that would be a very hard thing to prove that many years later. On the other hand, if you're the criminal that did all this, maybe you've got multiple concerns. You're concerned that okay, wait. There's another piece of this. Okay, there's another piece of this. Okay, look at this. It doesn't change any of our answers, but I think it helps explain our answer. So look at this. Okay, now look what we're told about this message. When I get back to Pavigny, you die. Okay, now look who got that. Look who got this and what circumstances. Okay, this is going to be the last piece that solves the mystery. They're interviewing Antoine, right? And look what Antoine says. Antoine says, Henry Valentine swore revenge on me as he was led from the court, and he threatened to kill me. You see this? And Antoine says, look at this. And Antoine says, when I get back to Pavigny, you die. Is this from Henry? And look what Papillon says. He's a violent man. To know he was soon going to be released when I was in grave danger made me fear for my life. When did this arrive? Sometime last week. Yvon opened it, but gave it over when he realized it was for me. I'm not sure it was for him. I think it may very well have been for Yvon. And it's possible that Yvon knew that our guy Henry Valentine was going to get out of jail and come back to get revenge on him. Or both of them. Maybe if you get revenge on him, then this guy goes to the police and tells on this guy. So either way, it wasn't just about getting the jewelry back. Like, even if you could come to an arrangement with the son to sell you the jewelry so no one would know it was fake, you still got the problem of this guy walking around alive. He's going to get out of jail, serve his time, and then he can be free to talk and say, hey, this guy robbed and ended up killing his own brother. So I think it's not just that Ivan wanted to get the jewelry back and bury it. He needed to kill off Valentine. And maybe that's also motivation for this guy to lie about the alibi. All right, so I think that explains a little bit better. All right, well, no one has said they have any difference of opinion, so I'm going to assume everyone's in agreement. So who killed him? All right, so we're going to stick with Henry Valentine. This, by the way, I think this might have been my favorite part of the case, where I didn't quite make the connection to how he was killed. And I think it was DJ Moneycut who said it was Leonce's gun that he was carrying. They struggled with self-defense. It went off. It makes sense with what everyone said. So we're going to say it's Leonce Junot's. Sorry. It's Henry Valentine, the robber, killed him, but with Leonce's gun. I think that makes sense. Okay, let's see what happens when we click confirm. It appears the police got this one right. All those years ago, Valentine had no way of knowing that Leonce would be in the workshop during the break-in, and when Leonce advanced on him with the gun from his desk, Valentine may have been able to wrest it from him and deal the shots that ended his life, but there are more questions we need to answer before we can close the case. Okay, I like that. I like that question, and I like the solution. All right, next step. Who killed Henry Valentine? Okay, this is the one that's the trickiest. Because even if we're right that Ivan planned it and is the mastermind and conducted insurance fraud, I think this is the answer we're most shaky on, whether he possibly could have had someone else do it. But I'm going to answer Ivan unless anyone has any alternate theory. We're told he's mixed height, so if we have any other theory, any other information about the height of these people, that could help us. Right? Because the sun says, he's not too tall, he's not too short. Were we given any information in the 60s or the 80s about height of anyone? I don't think so. They don't seem to be mentioned in any other of the papers. All right. Antoine has the rain shower alibi, plus he's not a killer. I agree with that. And any other of our photographic information that we have any use for? Not really. It's interesting that we got all these photographs, but no real use for them. Okay, here we go. Who killed Henry? Yvonne Junot. All right, this is the one. We're going to look pretty bad if we're wrong about this. All right, here we go. Confirm. It's all starting to make sense. Yvonne certainly had reason to want Valentine dead as the man who killed his brother in 1961, but how did he get hold of the gun that was used to kill Leonce? Do you have any theories on that? Looks like we were right. Okay, so we do have a theory. What was the motivation for the raid on Junot Brothers' workshop? That's a weird term, raid, but okay. We do have a theory for the motivation, and it was, well, this is a little bit poorly worded, because whose motivation? We believe that Henry was doing it for the purposes of theft, and so was, no doubt, the accomplice, but the real answer is fraud, insurance fraud. Right? Everyone's happy with that answer? YouTube says 11 concurrent viewers, 8 likes. Where's my extra view? Can we bring that up and see what it shows? Where is it? Do I have it over here? More views. YouTube stats. All right, let's look at this. 11 concurrent viewers. Chat rate 0. I don't know why it's not updating the chat rate. Monetization off. Everything's off. So there you go. That's our viewer. That's what it looks like, viewers. Peaks a little bit early. Then we're steady at 11. Okay, now we're down to 10 because I shifted away. What were we talking about? Oh, any disagreement here before we submit this? I tried to give you a chance to get on the record. All right, I'm going to click confirm. Here we go. If the earring recovered from the train station in 1982 was a fake, then Ivan must have advance notice that the robbery was going to take place. The back of the newspaper from 1962 states that he and Antoine Papineau were friends going way back. Perhaps they cooked up the plan together to defraud the insurance companies that had been giving the Junot brothers so much trouble recently. There's only one question left. We found that they're friends based on their interview. Was there... Did we miss also reading something about them being friends in the paper? That's shame on us. It's a little dangerous that we didn't read these articles that seemed to not be related. Look at this. So we did, it wasn't important because it was followed up in an interview, but look what we should have read. This article about the bike racing says, look what it says. Bertrand and Olivier reached the quarterfinals before being beaten by the eventual winners, the Netherlands men's pairing Papineau and Junot went one stage further, reaching the semifinals. So look at that. Papineau and Junot were old friends. But we already know they claim to have met up after the robbery, but now we see they were friends before, which makes complete sense. Okay. Now we're happier with the idea that they're each other's alibi. Okay. There's only one question left. Where was the gun that killed Léonce Junot from 1961 to 1982? Okay, and we believe it was in the possession of Yvonne Junot the whole time. And there we go. Let's see. So, did Papineau have it? Did Henry Valentine have it? Was it in police custody? Did Marie Valentine have it? Was it in the getaway vehicle? Was it in the roof of the train station, or did Yvonne Junot have it? This was my second favorite part of this case, that for most of the case, it felt like the gun had to have been Henry's gun, and he probably hid it with the jewelry. And what was so cool was once we resolved this theory that it was the brother's gun that Henry struggled with, then we thought, okay, now it makes more sense that it gets dropped and left at the scene. And then when we went back and looked at who found the body first, it was Yvonne. And that seemed to clinch the idea that Yvonne goes in, he discovers his brother's been killed during this fake robbery, or robbery he set up. He sees his brother dying, he sees the gun, he realizes he's going to get blamed. He takes the gun, he pockets it, and he says, someone broke in here, robbed me, and shot my brother. So the answer is Yvonne Junot had it the whole time. And here we go. Confirm. I think you've got it. Antoine called Yvonne as soon as he dropped Henry off at the train station. This accounts for the mysterious work call that brought Yvonne into the workshop after church on that Sunday morning. We should have spent some more time talking about this. This explained why it took too long for Papineau to call the police. It did make sense. If he and Antoine were trying to pin the entire crime on Henry and avoid suspicion of their plans of fraud, perhaps Yvonne retrieved his brother's gun, which Henry used to kill him, in order to make Henry seem more suspicious. With all of this information, I think we've got more than enough to try to reopen this case. You will surely be hearing from us on the murders of Leonce Junot and Henry Valentine soon. Several months later. Dear Detective, with all the evidence you collected, we were able to reopen the case of the murders of Leonce Junot and Henry Valentine in 1961 and 1982. The investigators decided to begin with questioning Antoine Papignan, as he seemed more likely to feel guilty about what had transpired. He cracked easily under the pressure of all your evidence. Below, find a quote from his confession below. It says, Yvonne approached me with his plan in 1961. The insurance companies were ruining his jewelry business, and as he explained it, if Valentine and I pulled this one easy heist, no one would get hurt, and the three of us would be all the richer. I never would have agreed to it if I knew there was even a chance that anyone would have been in the workshop. But Yvonne made it sound like it would be so easy. That day in 1982, the day of Valentine's murder, I was scared for my life. I just received his threatening note, and I knew his reputation for being ruthless. Yvonne convinced me, again, to cover for him and provide his alibi as he went to the train station to take care of Valentine, once and for all. And no one would have to worry again. Oh, I wish I'd never agreed to all those schemes. With Antoine's confession in hand, we were able to approach Yvonne Junot and get the rest of the full story. Of course, I wrote the threatening note to Antoine. Bless his heart, but he's so cagey about doing what must be done. Okay, so he faked the note to Antoine. I couldn't let Valentine return to Pavigny, and I especially couldn't let him retrieve and try to sell those jewels. They would quickly be identified as fakes, and even a dunce like Valentine would figure out the rest of our scheme from there. I was lucky Joel Valentine came to visit me before his father arrived in town. I told him if he would recover the jewels, I'd pay him handsomely, and in return he told me what train his father would be on, but in the end I couldn't leave the job to Joel. I needed to avenge my brother's death, and I wanted to do it with the very gun I'd swiped from the crime scene all those years ago. I bought the shortest round-trip ticket out of Pavigny, which would put me directly on the same train as Valentine coming back into town. From there, the rest was simple. Okay, so we were right about the train ticket round trip to get on the same train. This thing about avenging his brother, that doesn't seem quite right to me, but okay, either way. Thanks to all your hard work, we're working to put these men behind bars for their part in the horrible crimes of the past. Should you ever want to aid us again, please check out ThinkFun.com to see what other open cold cases we have on file. Sophie Miller, Royal Prosecution Service Administrator. So I wonder if Sophie Miller isn't the author of this case. And then if we click new case, it's just going to send us back to the case number. Okay. So we're going to do our normal thing here. First, a little fireworks celebration. What we'll do is we just got... Oh, did we just get back from break? No, I can't tell when we had our last break. I've got to fix that. What we'll do is we'll take our 3-minute break, super short break, just a formality, and then we'll come back and talk about the case. There's 11 concurrent viewers. I hope some of you will stick around, share your thoughts on this case, who you would recommend it to, what we thought of it, how it compares with others. We'll be back in 3 minutes to discuss the case. I hope you can join me for that. You are watching Co-op for Two. We've just finished playing a cold case game by ThinkFun called End of the Line. I'm curious what the channel thinks of the game. I have my thoughts. Let's see what everyone else thinks. DJ Moneycut says, pretty good case. Short length would be good for a first-timer, not too overwhelming. I don't think it was too easy, but the story was a little bland. Still, I would recommend it. Okay, well, while I'm waiting for other people to chime in with their thoughts, let me give you my thoughts. I would say I was very pleasantly surprised. My memory of the first cold case game by ThinkFun that I played was that it was much too easy. And here I think it's a much, I think this case was more interesting. The setup, the crime, the odd details that had to be reconciled was more enjoyable here. And it is on the easy side for sure. You could pick this up for $16, which makes it one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, cold case game you can get at regular price, and probably you could pick this up on sale for $10. The production quality is quite high. I mean, you've got all these crime scene photos, which were well done. All the interviews were well written, no bugs. Two nice, generous newspaper stuff. We've got a nice, high-quality brochure. We've got police reports. So really, especially for the price, a very reasonable set of documents. Now, definitely shallower mystery in the sense that we really didn't have to dig through and find hidden aha details in the documents. I mean, like all of these documents, all of these crime scene photos, they're more for flavor, right, than hiding secret clues. And I think that was generally true about all of the evidence. All of the evidence is basically like there are no clues like you might expect to get in a game. There's no detail about this scene that you have to notice. It's much more for just setting and theme, but it's fun. But I think that's in general true with all of the evidence. Like there's no clue here you have to figure out. It's just, you know, a little going through the motions of the police procedural, but enjoyable enough. And the dialogue and the interviews were all well done. But, so not particularly deep, but what he did have going for it was a couple little details that were hard to make sense of, right? Like, once our intuition about who was to blame for all this was very early. But then figuring out how did he know where the guy would be and where was the gun and how do you explain that? Those little details did all click into place at the end. And that was the satisfying part. And there were at least two really interesting details there about where the gun was and maybe motivation and how did this guy know where he would be and how do you explain his alibi? And actually, the explaining the alibi was maybe one of the more realistic parts of this game. It like gave us this little setup, like he was reading under the tree, and then he says, well, the mail came. And often in a game like this, you crack the alibi by being like, well, there was this 2-hour window that no one saw him. But here it was more straightforward. It's like, he's got this guy in his back pocket, and he said, you're going to lie and cover for me. So I think you could nitpick. You could ask for a little more. In some of the more sophisticated cold case games, there would be a little more details about some of these things that you'd have to notice. There was an article in the back of the paper that we should have read, and that might have put these two together as friends, but we had already jumped to that conclusion. There are a couple of interesting slip-ups in the interview. I think that may be one of the hallmarks of this series, that they have the interviewees slip up occasionally. But there were some things that threw us off, like the sister and brother's explanation being not quite consistent. And I just found overall the story was interesting. Fake insurance fraud, brother gets killed. Originally, we thought, oh, the whole plan was to kill the brother, but then we figured out, no, it really wasn't. I liked that. I liked that we were led on some wild goose chases of what was going on. And in the end, we settled into a fairly straightforward, believable set of crimes. The final question was good, except for the word raid. Yeah, I think Petiel says, a lot of the details were nice. As you say, I agree with DJ that I found the story a little bland. Oh, I guess I disagree with that complaint. I didn't find the story bland. I like this little insurance fraud heist. Go watch Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. But if I were to make one suggestion, two suggestions. One would be some little deeper clues. But I think maybe, and this happens commonly with these games we play, I have a little bit of issue, like I feel like the questions could have been better. There were some good questions here, like where has the gun been? But I think one of the ways that you take an easy game and you make it satisfying for the people who spend more time trying to solve things is you have more questions that are more subtle, accepting that some of the new players might not get them all. So I wouldn't have minded some questions like, how did Ivan do not know where he'd be? Or things of that nature. Was the murder of Henry deliberate? I'm sorry, was the murder of the other brother? Like, you could have a couple more questions that some players might have still gotten the right answer but missed. For example, if you asked us about the ticket to Elm, we would have gotten that explanation correctly, that this guy bought a round-trip short ticket so he could hop on the same train. Some people might not get that, but what we would have gotten slightly wrong, according to the designers, is this note being sent by Junot just to pressure Papillon. And it might have been nice. These are, you might think of these like in Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, little side issues, side questions. But you could plant clues to that, subtle clues, and still have people get the main answers, but only have parts of the players get some of these details. That's the only little details that I would suggest. DJ Moneycut says, for a heist movie, I like Inside Man with Clive Owen. Yes, I have seen that. It's okay. All right, well, 3 hours on the short side for us, but still enjoyable. So you might get 1 hour out of this if you played it. But I would recommend this for a new group. If you were wondering, like, what's a good game to get our feet wet, and you found it on sale for $10, I would have no hesitation recommending you pick this up. So well done. All right. Thank you as always for joining me for this playthrough. If you played this on your own and have stumbled across this video, if this was the first cold case game you tried, if you got things wrong, I'd love to hear in the comments what your experience with this game was. If you disagree with us, thanks to the audience for joining me. Pleasure as always. I'll see you next time.